Greetings, and welcome to When the Moment Chooses You. I am your host, Coach Charlene, and I am super excited to have the one and only Rayne with us today. So, welcome back to the podcast, Rayne.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me, Coach Charlene, and happy Nurses Week, my dear
Yes,
friend. Another
back
one.
at you, and all to all of the nurses out there. Happy Nurses Week. We
That's right.
honor
That's
you.
right.
We are so
Happy
excited
day.
that you are a part of this profession and that you make a difference every day that you show up
Amen.
to work.
Every
So
minute.
thank you.
That's right.
So I decided, Rain, to really amplify caring science because it has meant
Mm,
so much to me in my profession since I've been
yes.
on the journey since 2010.
Yes.
And I mean, really swinging full circle because now what's so exciting is to be able to see the front line actively engaging in practicing and leading their
That's right.
peers with caring science has been absolutely inspirational.
Yes.
And so
Inspiring.
I wanted to kind of unpack, when did it start for you? I'd love to hear about it.
Oh, one of the things Gene always tells us is that caring science isn't new as far as, the behaviors and the feelings. It's just, it's the language that we put, to practice. And I think, being the oldest of five boys, being a son, now a father, a husband, an uncle, a godfather, you grow up and it's those caring moments that you realize are what, when we were talking about legacy earlier, those are the things you want to invest in, and those are the things you hopefully are present enough and engaged enough to remember. Because being a dad now, it's like I talk to my fellow parents to really say, hey, as a kid, what are the things you remember? And it was never anything that, any gifts or any vacations, as much as the time together,
Yeah.
and knowing that those caring moments personally, and then as you look at, whether it's elementary school, high school, college, etc., it's that feeling of belonging, Coach Charlene, as you know, because, unfortunately, as we're still dealing with incivility,
Yes.
bullying, and a lot of those things in our environments. I mean, we talk about like, wow, I, thought that ended back in junior high or high school, but it's very much alive, unfortunately, and it's a lot of those human aspects. And as we heard earlier, it's like hurt people. And
Yes.
so how do you connect with not just our patients but our colleagues to address those challenges as well? So I think it's just shown up in every aspect of life, Coach Charlene, but now there's language to
Yeah.
it that we can put professionally as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely. Well, Rain, why don't you tell everybody who you are, and then we're going to continue on in the conversation.
Sure, sure. Well, aside from being a husband, father, brother, in all those roles outside of work, as we know, Rain. And so, my current role at Kaiser Permanente, as you know, Charlene, is the regional director for professional excellence. And, I'm so blessed and honored to work with you, because a big part of that is our Caring Science Academy that we really spread from your work at South
Mhm.
Sacramento now to the region, to care for our 28,000 nurses in 21 hospitals, and in the continuum, the clinics, the call centers, et cetera, wherever our patients and communities are. And so leading that work, and of course, partnering with our academic partners and infusing caring science in the curriculum for BSN, MSN, DNP,
Yes.
and other programs as well, including our School of Allied Health as part of that unitary vision that Gene has. And then, now also helping to, really take care of our Daisy and Petal Awards and the Lotus Awards in terms of that community of practice, knowing that rewards and recognition is huge when it comes to taking care of our staff and our leaders as well, my
Well,
friend.
thank you for letting us know because you are the boss.
Oh,
I
God.
know. But Rain, I want to go back to what you were talking about with the incivility and bullying, because I believe that, we went through quite a bit. All of us, I call it a triple pandemic because Literally, it
Yes.
was the COVID-19, it was the racial injustice, and then it was our own personal pandemics of loss, and just everything was so uncertain, and so the incivility increased during that time, it appears. And so carrying science, however, what I've witnessed just with the transformation that I've seen in SSC, because we were
Hmm.
having major issues there. And I'm not saying that it's all the way gone, but I'm just saying I
Right.
have seen a marked difference with our staff, our front line, and some of our leaders being engaged in the Caring Science Academy.
Yeah.
And now moving from this really dark place to this place of passion and fervency, and them actually really just practicing the principles for themselves, with their patients, with their peers.
Yeah.
And so I really just believe that we are on to something here, and all
Yeah.
the work that you're doing, we're on to something, and it's very, very magical. And so
Yeah.
I'm
No,
super
definitely.
excited about the possibilities. And so you talked about caring moments quite a bit. And so I want to know from you, can you tell me a caring moment that you remember? I know you have many, but do you
Ooh.
mind sharing one with us?
Yeah, I think, speaking of pandemic, the most powerful one, a few years ago, my dad passed away at the beginning of the pandemic. And, although it wasn't from COVID, that was the silver lining, but it was from other things as a result of his comorbidities, a kidney transplant
Mm,
that eventually, wore out, and just, not wanting to go back on dialysis. I think he made a conscious decision, with what he had left, not to, go through that again, Charlene. And so I think, in terms of a caring moment, the most painful experience, but the one of the most blessed experiences was not being able to be by his side in his last moments
yeah,
because of our visitor policies and the challenges of that situation, but to hear that, from a colleague and friend, that don't worry, because our one of our best nurses, her name was Jasmine, was holding his hand,
oh,
at the end. And so just hearing that and knowing that, it in a really dark time, Coach Charlene, it brought me peace. It
yeah,
brought me light, knowing that there was someone, by his side. And so, and that's why I believe, as nurses, we're so blessed and honored to be in those intimate moments. I mean, you lead, teams that are there at the beginning of
yeah,
life. The scenario I described, of course, is at the end of life. And so when I think about our nurses and caregivers in the hospice realm, in that doing that, God's work there, every day, it's like, wow, to be a facilitator of those caring moments, right, for families, for loved ones, even in those final moments. I think that's one of the more
that is
powerful ones
powerful.
that will remain with me, my
Yeah,
friend.
that's very powerful. That actually reminds me, Rain. I had on my show a few weeks ago for Black Maternal Week, Dr. Burry Garcia. And
Uh-huh.
so what happened with
Yes, Bernice,
her
you did this time.
is she called, well, actually, I reached out to her like 2 years ago, and I was going to ask her if she would do, something about cultural
Mhm.
humility for our unit.
Yeah.
And at the same, when I emailed her, she literally emailed back and she said, "Oh my goodness, my daughter is in one of your rooms." And yeah, and she
Wow.
was like, "Could you please go check on her?" It was 2020. They couldn't come in. She
Yeah.
was very,
Yeah.
like, concerned about the care that her daughter would receive. And so when we
Sure.
connected, it was like so powerful. It was just like one of those synchronicities and,
Right. Right.
serendipities. And so she said, and
That's
she
right.
told me, she said, "Charlene, I will never forget what you did for my family." And so those moments that you're talking about are so
It's
powerful and
not.
profound. And it's not something that you tried to do, it just happened. And that's what I
Not
love
at
about
all. And
caring moments.
and it's a genuine, and I think, what we've learned is, another big thing we've learned is, my friend, is that we used to call caring science and heart math and a lot of these things the soft
Yes.
things, right? The fluffy, nice things. But, it took a pandemic and a triple pandemic, to your point, and with the environments that we're dealing with today, to know that these are actually the hardest
Yes,
things. To achieve magnet, you have to have culture change.
absolutely.
To achieve, Baldridge, you have to have culture change. To achieve, quality improvement, the quadruple aim culture is, eats, quality and all of these strategies for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, as we
Absolutely.
know. And so, in order to change that culture, to your point, to go from those dark times to where staff, caregivers are passionate again, especially coming out of a pandemic or burnout,
Yes.
and the new normal that we were quite unsure about, and the moral distress. It's, to know that something like caring science many years later, from where, our friend Dr. Gene Watson, imagined it would be, is coming to light yet
Yes.
again. It's almost a renaissance, in this time of darkness, and coming out of a lot of darkness with
Yeah,
that.
it's so awesome. Hey, I asked before with on my other podcast. I want to ask you the same question, but
Sure.
sometimes we hear from staff, well, I just don't have the time. So,
Yeah.
what would you say to one of those nurses or practitioners that say, you know what, I just don't have the time to do that?
Yeah, it's fascinating, as you being one of our esteemed faculty of our new caring science or Caritas coaching program. It's a 6 month program, and so that a lot of the barriers, whether it's self-imposed or operational or just life, things, is time. And so not having the time, and I think as people start to go through these programs, what they start to realize is that making time to get involved in caring science, and and the Caritas processes, is not really about taking time for others as much as it is taking time for yourself.
Yes.
And as nurses, as caregivers, we're ridden with guilt when we feel like, oh gosh, I don't want to turn attention to myself, or too much time for self-care. I have to, I'm responsible for the world, my patients, my department, my
It's so
budget,
true.
my family, my, there's no time, as to your point. But then that burnout starts to creep
Yeah.
in, that resentment, that the things that, at the end of life, it's like regret,
Yeah.
right? And it's like the worst thing. And so, trying to learn those lessons early. And so I think, in terms of not having time, that's why it's so important to have peers and colleagues who can attest to the value
Yes.
that, caring science in the programs, and that it's not really adding anything as much as enhancing
Yes.
what you're already doing. We have a lot of, measures, quality measures, care experience measures that, as it starts to feel like, gosh, what initiative am I checking off? What boxes am I? And it loses the genuine, why am I doing this? And why are we changing yet again? But then when you overlay things like caring science to it, it's like, oh, that's why you want me to have a warm handoff or be at the bedside to give report. It's, we're trying to make a connection, a better connection, a genuine connection, with our patients and their loved ones, not just because we have to hit these scores or meet these metrics or requirements, but because it's just the right things to do, and that's who we are as nurses anyway.
Yes.
And so it's getting back to that, that space and that
Yeah.
purpose. Speaking of
Yeah,
purpose.
absolutely. Which was a great that was a great session. So nursing often involves putting others' needs before our own. How do you prioritize self-care and maintain your own well-being?
Ooh, I really, it's taking the time. I think that's number one, is not, letting go of the guilt, taking the time to really, in the morning, not grab your phone and start checking emails or jumping on social media or anything like that. Because I think you hear more and more that actually, you know, eh, degrades sort of the quality of your day, because then your brain gets going. And I think the analogy that I heard recently, I think from Jay Shetty on his Calm, podcast was, when you start your car, you're not going from 0 to 60 out of your driveway. So why would you do that to your heart and your body,
Yeah, that's
and it's
good.
it's just thinking about it, in those types of terms. And then again, being present, with relationships, whether it's your family, it's your colleagues and friends, and just being engaged and present, trying to put digital devices away as much as possible, and being more purposeful about, doing those types of things. And then, of course, being out in the ocean, being, with colleagues and friends out there paddling, and,
Yeah,
spending time in nature, and appreciating what a speck of, humanity we are compared to the universe, and being
absolutely.
thankful for the opportunities we have every day, my friend. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, just little things that lead to big things,
No,
hopefully.
that's good. And you know what you said, and I mean, it struck me when you said it, and it's very simple. And you said that you have to take the time. So when you have to take the time, to me, that's like an intentional, conscious
That's
choice
right.
versus, okay, I might have time. No, I'm taking this time. I'm taking this 5 minutes just to be silent. I'm taking this 5 minutes just to go walk outside and see the sunshine. So it has to be intentional because I recognize if it's not intentional, it will not happen.
That's right.
Because
That's
we
right.
have plenty of things to fill our moments with, but this is
That's
such an
right.
important part. I'm
Yes.
curious.
Well, and I think that's the thing too, Coach Charlene. That, you're in the world of the labor and delivery. I came from the world of the
Oh
emergency
yeah,
department. So I think when people ask, how do you stay so calm? I think because we come from environments where, when when the things get more stressful, that you have to be calm. You become that, that calm, in the middle of that
yeah,
storm for everyone around you, because, then it gets dangerous, right? The more you rush,
absolutely.
you don't want to take shortcuts. Just you want to just stay focused and be present and engaged. So I think clinically, we come from those worlds where you're trained and you have to function in a calm, collected, very, very focused and engaged way as well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I remember just what you mentioning that because I mean, one of my superpowers is peace, and it's
yes,
so easy for me
yes,
to really get down when it's like a storm flying all around me. I am like just as still, calm, and so before when I first started leading, they're like, "Do you even care that we're like crazy busy running around?" It's like, "Yeah, I care so much that I'm gonna be
hmm,
still so that I can make
that's right.
proper decisions." And so it
Yeah,
took them a while to get what I was doing, but I knew that to lead, I needed to shift the atmosphere. I had to
that's
recreate the
right.
healing environment,
That's
right?
right.
And so they finally learned. And then when it was chaotic, then they'd come get me. They were like, "Charlene, we need your peace."
That's right.
But it's so
That's
important.
right.
You're so right, spot on right there, Rayne. What about? I want to like dream a little bit. What do you
Okay.
envision with nursing and curing science in the future?
Wow. I think to your point, I envision just our continuous quest towards, you know, getting back to our purpose and the connection of nursing, and the connection with our patients, the communities that we serve, and really the humanity of it. And that's why I think caring science is so important, because although it's called caring science, we always look at our professional
Yeah,
practice model. It's the practice of nursing that we talk about. But then there's this whole discipline of nursing and who we are as professionals. And, one of the things about nursing, as is we're the most trusted profession. Well, why is that? Why do we continually, get that designation? It's because people look at us and they trust us, in terms of, who we are and what we are to them in their most vulnerable and, most stressful moments. And I mean, if you're not going to build trust in those moments, it's time to, maybe take up, I don't know, accounting or I don't know,
something.
something that's, more away from, human beings. But, it's just one of those things, Charlene, where, when you look at, nursing as it moves forward, we talk about the generations of nurses, right? 2030 is huge because the baby boomers will be at
Yeah.
its peak. Nurses will be at high need, and so it's that inverse relationship that we're looking at, and so there's a lot of angst when you look at that. And so the question is, how do you continue to attract the youth and generation today into a caring profession? And I think a lot of that, as we've seen through the pandemic, through the mental health challenges in our youth, and and the care that's being given out there, it's like it's still a calling. I don't
Yeah.
think, we always talk about you don't go into nursing to become,
Right.
wealthy or ultra millionaires, right? And it stands true to today. And what gives me hope and encouragement is when you look at generations today, they're looking for that purpose.
Yes.
They're looking for that mission, that connection. They want to go and help, the underserved and be a part of, and represent those who don't have a voice. And if nursing isn't that career, I don't know what is, my
Yeah.
friend, because that's who we
Yeah,
are,
absolutely.
and that's why we're the most trusted profession, time and time and again. And so I have a lot of hope. And I think, being out there, being a voice to say, hey, why don't you consider
Yeah.
nursing? And, we go to high schools, in elementary
Yes.
schools, even to continue planting those seeds. Because if anything, there's a lot of angst also about technology and AI and robots replacing, a lot of, employment, sectors out there. But unless they can make a robot care and love someone, from birth to death, um, it's far fetched to think that nursing is going away anytime soon.
Absolutely. No, totally agree with you on that. And you know what, Rain? You know I love to get my top three, Rain's top three. So I hope you're ready to give me three wisdom gems. But before you do that, I just thought about something and I want to really speak to
Sure.
any nurses or healthcare workers out there that are feeling a little stuck, Rain. I'm wondering if you can advise them or give them a little bit of advice of someone they're coming to work, they're not really there, but they really are physically there. They just feel like they're stuck and they're not sure like how to get
Yeah.
out of that feeling of being stuck.
Wow. You know, and I think that's again where caring science is so powerful. Because oftentimes we also we carry a lot of guilt again, in terms of self care, and a lot of, and that's why when we talk about Caritas processes, number 5 is my favorite this
Yeah,
year because it's all about forgiveness.
absolutely.
It's having mentors, coworkers, colleagues, friends, bosses, coworkers, whoever that you come into work, to have that time to be able to, yeah, listen to and to speak with about things that are going well and things that aren't going so well, and why you feel stuck. Because I think a lot of what we need before self-care is forgiveness. It's forgiving our system, forgiving what's happening in the world, forgiving past injuries and traumas, and in order for us to move forward with anything. And so until we can acknowledge those emotions and those feelings and address and face them in order to move forward, it's hard not to feel stuck or paralyzed. And so, between seeking, employee
Yes.
assistance, your Caritas
Yeah.
coaches, mentors, friends, your loved ones, and not feeling guilty about speaking up and saying, how you're feeling and how you're doing. A few moments. I'd rather have you for a few moments than lose you for life.
Amen to that.
Because we know mental
Yeah,
health
that's good.
is so huge nowadays, my
Yeah,
friend.
that's so powerful, Rain. And you know what? That also, I mean, it just shows I love Caritas process number 5 as well. So when we were dealing with um, the murder of George Floyd and all of the
Yeah.
other social
Right.
unrest, that was like my go-to. I really leveraged Caritas process number
Yes,
5 because
that's
you were
great.
listening to the positive and negative expressions and authentically listen to another person's story. So I start having listening sessions so that people can just be and just get it out.
That's right.
And it was so
That's right.
profound. So what I love about the Caritas processes is you can use them in those particular ways to really bring transformation. Because once I sit with you in your suffering and I listen to another person's story, then I feel like you see me, you hear me.
That's
I'm
right.
listening to you.
That's
I'm here
right.
with you. I might not understand you and what you're going through, but I want you to see that I'm with you.
There.
Yes,
That's
we're on the same page, and so
we're
I
connected,
love how you unpack that. So thank you so much for unpacking that. So
of course.
now I would love your wisdom gems. This is Rayne's top three.
Okay, so what was the question? So top
Wisdom
three
gems. And I'm not going to structure it
wisdom.
any way. If there's any nurses or
Okay.
healthcare workers out there that you would like to give them some advice or inspiration, you can give them your top three.
Yeah. The three things that I always carry around in terms of approaching any situation, and I forget who the initial person who said it was, but whenever you're in a new or a stressful situation, it's really approaching it with three things, and that's curiosity, to your point about listening and understanding, humility in terms of just being humble, and not assuming, putting away those biases, and the things that you think or internally you've thought, about a situation or about a certain group or a generation or whatever the case may be, culture, and then respect. Because I think unless you have that basic respect for one another, it's tough to genuinely want to be curious and listen and really be there, genuinely to care about someone, Charlene. And so I think, and by no means am I saying that that's something that I've perfected. That's something I just have to work
Yeah.
on every day. And again, taking the time to pause and realize the situation that you're in, and to be humble, to be curious, and to respect, that person or that audience that you're working with. And again, that's, I believe, who we are as
Yeah.
nurses. So
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for your awesomeness. Okay, I forgot to tell everybody that he was like the best finance teacher ever.
I'm teaching it
Are
again
you
this
teaching
summer.
again? Yes, it was. You have no idea how much joy you brought us when we were going through so much, because I did my
Oh,
master's during COVID-19. And so
that's
you were
right.
one of the instructors, and we were just beat down, from
Yes,
work to class. And then for
right.
you to come in with your presence and your joy, it was
Oh,
just
in a finance
in the
class, no
finance
less.
class. That's what I'm saying. Everybody's usually like, "Oh God, we got finance," but you made it so much fun. So I will never forget you
Oh, thank
for
you so
that.
much,
So
Coach
thank you, and
Charlene.
thank you for being on the
Of
podcast with
course,
sharing your story, because
anytime.
I so appreciate all the work that's going on now since you've stepped in, and
Oh
it's
gosh,
absolutely amazing. And I'm so excited to be a part of the change. And the all of
sure.
the I told them 2010 is when it all started for me. But to
Yeah,
see the fruit is worth
that's right.
every painful tear that I cried about,
That's
not being
that's
able
right.
to do A, B, and C. So I'm super excited about what's
Yeah.
to come. And so happy that you're back with us.
Oh, thank you so much, Coach Charlene. And I carry this around with me also. I think
Yes,
you did.
that's right.
So when you asked earlier about how I know that, how Caritas shows up, and reading the stories from your caring science graduation,
Yes.
the testimonials of people. The most recent one was from one of our Caritas Hub graduations, where the frontline nurse said, "I just came to get 23 CEUs. I didn't think I was going to change my life."
No, that is so rich though, but because people do, they
Right,
come in and like perhaps the first class frame, they're kind of got like a little attitude and stuff like that because
right,
they don't know
right.
who we are, and they're like, okay, what
Yeah,
is this stuff?
exactly.
And I mean, we had one participant say that she was on the verge of suicide, and that
Mm,
class helped her to live again. And so it's
wow,
just so profound. So we
powerful.
are we are working the magic. So thank you for leading the magic.
Oh my goodness, we're in it
Yes,
together, my
and thank
dear
you for
friend.
being on the show.
Thank you, Coach Charlene.
I want to thank you for tuning in to another inspiring episode of When the Moment Chooses You. I'm your host, Coach Charlene, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Each journey we've shared today is a reminder that when the moment chooses you, the possibilities are endless.